Externalities. Our goal in this chapter is to answer the following questions. What is an externality? Why do externalities make market outcomes inefficient? What public policies aim to solve the problems of externality? How can people sometimes solve the problem of externalities on their own, and why? Why do such private solutions not always work? So, externalities. Markets are usually a good way to organize economic activity, one of the 10 principles we saw in Chapter 1. In absence of market failure, the competitive market outcome is efficient and maximizes total surplus. Externality is one type of market failure, and is the uncompensated impact of one person's action on the well-being of another. Externalities can either be negative or positive. Negative externality is the impact on the bystander is adverse or negative. Positive externality, the impact on the bystander is beneficial or positive. Self-interested buyers and sellers usually neglect the external cost or benefits of their actions. So the market outcome is not efficient. Government action can sometimes improve upon market outcomes. Why markets sometimes fail to allocate resources efficiently, how government policies can potentially improve the market's allocation, what kinds of policies are likely to work best. Let's see what the experts say regarding vaccines. Declining to be vaccinated against contagious diseases such as measles impose costs on other people, which is a negative externality. 100% of economists say yes. Negative externality. Examples of negative externality: air pollution from a factory, the neighbor's barking dog. If your neighbor's barking dog keeps you from sleeping, or you have a little baby that can't sleep because of the barking dog, that's a negative externality. Late night stereo blasting from the dorm room next to yours, especially if you must study for economics tests and the stereo is loud next door, that's a negative externality. Noise pollution from construction projects, health risk to others from secondhand smoke. Talking on cell phone while driving makes road less safe for others. Examples of negative externality. Recap of welfare economics, the market for gasoline. So that is a demand curve that shows private value, the value to buyers, the price that buyers are willing to pay. Remember, demand curve reflects the consumer's willingness to pay. Supply curve is supplier's willingness to sell. Supply curve shows the private cost, the cost directly incurred by sellers. And in this market, equilibrium price is $2.50 and equilibrium quantity is 25. The market equilibrium maximizes consumer and producer surplus, which is this area. As we can see, consumer surplus plus producer surplus, this is total surplus. This is a definition of the welfare. Now, supply curve is a private cost. If there is an external cost, value of the negative impact on bystander, and if it is estimated to be $1 per gallon, the value of harm from smog or greenhouse gases is $1, and there's an external cost. And if you take into account the external cost, then you have the social cost. Social cost is the private cost plus the external cost. Now, that is the true supply curve. If you impose the demand curve, then the social optimum quantity is 20 gallons. The social optimum quantity is 20 gallons, not 25. In other words, if we if we do not internalize the external cost, this product is being overproduced. 25 is not efficient, 20 is efficient. So at any output less than 20, the value of additional gas exceeds social cost, which means anything less than 20 is also inefficient because marginal benefits, as read on the demand curve, is higher than marginal cost, and society still wants more of the gasoline. Anything less than 20 is inefficient. Anything more than 20 is inefficient. So at any output greater than 20, social cost of the last gallon is greater than its value to society, and therefore it is being overproduced. Market equilibrium at 25 is greater than 20. In other words, at 25, this item is being overproduced because at 25, cost, the social costs or the marginal cost, is greater than the marginal benefits. So the society says we need less of this, reduce this to 25. So one solution is to tax the sellers $1 per gallon. That would shift the supply curve by $1, and that is what this green supply curve is. It is a $1 shift up or shift to the left. Internalizing the externality. Altering incentives so that people take into account the external effects of their actions. In our example, the $1 per gallon tax on sellers makes sellers' costs equal to social costs. If market participants pay social costs, the market equilibrium is equal to social optimum, and that is efficient. What about positive externalities? Examples of positive externalities. Being vaccinated against contagious diseases protects not only you, but people who visit the salad bar or produce section after you, or produce section after you, sorry. Research and development creates knowledge others can use. People going to college raise the population's education level, which reduces crime and improves government. With a positive externality, social value of a good includes private value, the direct value to buyers, and external benefit, the value of the possible impact on a bystander. The socially optimum output maximizes welfare. At any output lower than the social value of the additional unit exceeds the cost, and therefore is being underproduced. At any higher output, the cost of the last unit exceeds social value, and therefore it's being overproduced. Active learning 1, analysis of positive externality. Here is a market for flu. If there is an external benefit estimated at $10, which is a flu shot, draw the social value curve, find the social optimal output, What policy would internalize this externality? So, here's a market for flu without any subsidy. If the social value is above the current demand curve, that's the $10. Social value is equal to the private value plus the $10, which shifts the demand curve up to the right. Social optimum is now 25. Instead of 20, it is now 25. More people are getting flu shots. To internalize the externality, use subsidy. In other words, if flu shot has got social benefits, then the government will usually subsidize it to ensure that the greatest number of people have flu shots. And that will increase the optimum output from 20 to 25. 20 is inefficient, 25 is efficient. Effects of externalities summary. If negative externality, market quantity is larger than socially desirable. In other words, it is being overproduced. Marginal cost is higher than marginal benefits. If it's a positive externality, market quantity is smaller than socially desirable, which means it is underproduced, underproduction. Marginal benefit is higher than marginal cost. To remedy the problem, internalize the externality. Two goods with negative externalities, beg your pardon, tax goods with negative externalities or subsidize goods with positive externalities. What do the experts say about vaccines? Considering the cost of restricting free choice and the share of people in the United States who choose not to vaccinate their children for measles, the social benefits of mandating measles vaccines for all Americans, except those with compelling medical reasons, would exceed the social cost, and the economists say 89% they agree. 6% disagree, 5% are uncertain. Public policies towards externalities. Command and control is usually direct regulation by the government. Regulate the behavior directly. Limit the quantity of pollution emitted. Requirements that a farm adopt a particular technology to reduce emissions. There are also market-based policies, like incentives so that private decision makers will choose to solve the problem on their own. And that would include corrective taxes and subsidies or tradable pollution permits. Corrective taxes, also known as Pigovian taxes, induce private decision makers to take account of social costs that arise from a negative externality, places a price on the right to pollute, reduce pollution at a lower cost to society, raise revenue for government, and enhance economic efficiency. Different farms have different costs of pollution abatement. Efficient outcome, therefore, farms will, with the lowest abatement cost, reduce pollution the most. A pollution tax is efficient. Farms with low abatement costs will reduce pollution to reduce their tax burden. Farms with high abatement costs have greater willingness to pay taxes. Regulation requiring all farms to reduce pollution by a specific amount is not efficient. Corrective taxes are better for the environment. The corrective tax gives farms incentives to continue reducing pollution as long as the cost of doing so is less than the tax. If a cleaner technology becomes available, the tax gives farms an incentive to adopt it. In contrast, farms have no incentive to further reduction beyond the level specified by the regulation. Here is a case study. The gas tax targets three negative externalities: congestion. The more you drive, the more you contribute to congestion. Accidents. Larger vehicles cause more damage in an accident. Pollution. Burning fossil fuels produces greenhouse gases. What do economists say regarding carbon taxes? The Brookings Institution recently described a U.S. carbon tax of $20 per ton, increasing at 40% per year, which would raise an estimated $150 billion per year in federal revenues over the next decade. Given the negative externalities created by carbon dioxide emissions, a federal carbon tax at this rate would involve fewer harmful net distortions to the U.S. economy than a tax increase that generated the same revenue by raising marginal tax rates on labor income across the board. And the economists say 98% agree, 2% uncertain. What about carbon taxes continued? A tax on carbon contents of fuels would be a less expensive way to reduce carbon dioxide emissions than would a collection of policies such as corporate average fuel economy requirements for automobiles. Economists agree 95% of the time, 2% disagree, and 3% are uncertain. Active Learning 2. Acme, the US electric run coal burning power plants, each emit Acme and US electric run coal burning power plants each emit 40 tons of sulfur dioxide per month, total emission 80 tons per month. The goal: reduce SO2 emissions 25% to 60 tons per month. Cost of reducing emissions: $100 per ton for Acme and $200 per ton for US Electric. Policy Option 1, Regulation. Every farm must cut its emission by 25%, that is 10 tons. Your task: compute the costs to each farm and total cost for achieving goal using this policy. Each farm must reduce emissions by 10 tons. Cost of reducing emissions is $100 per ton for Acme, $200 per ton for US Electric. Compute cost of achieving goal with this policy. Cost to Acme, 10 tons times 100, that's $1,000. Cost to USE, 10 times 200, that's $2,000. Total cost of achieving the goal, $3,000. Option 2, tradable pollution permits. Use 60 permits each allows 1 ton SO2 emissions. Give 30 permits to each farm. Establish market for trading permits. Each farm may use all its permits to emit 30 tons, may emit less than 30 tons and sell leftover permits, or may purchase extra permits to emit more than 30 tons. Your task: compute the cost of achieving goal if Acme uses 20 permits and sells 10 to USE for $150 each. The goal: reduce emission from 80 to 60 tons. Cost of reducing emissions, $100 per ton. Acme, $200 per ton for USE. Compute cost of achieving goal for Acme. Acme sells 10 permits to USC for $150 each, gets $1,500, uses 20 permits, emits 20 tons SO2, spends $2,000 to reduce emissions by 20 tons. Net cost to Acme, 2,000 minus 1,500 is 500. Compute cost of achieving goal for USE. USE buys 10 permits from Acme, spends $1,500, uses these 10 plus original 30 permits, emits 40 tons, spends nothing on abatement. Net cost of to USE is $1,500. Total cost of achieving goal is 500 plus 1,500 is 2,000. Using tradable permit, goal is achieved at lower total cost and lower cost to achieve to each farm than using regulation. Tradable pollution permit system. It reduces pollution at lower cost than regulation. Farms with low cost of reducing pollution do so and sell their unused permits. Farms with high cost of reducing pollution buy permits. The result, pollution reduction is concentrated among those farms with lowest costs. Reducing pollution using pollution permits or corrective taxes. Farms pay for their pollution. Corrective taxes pay to the government. Pollution permits pay to buy a permits. Pay to buy permits. Sorry. Internalize the externality of pollution. Objections to the economic analysis of pollution. We cannot give anyone to the option of polluting for a fee by late Senator Edmund Muskie. There was an objection. People face trade-offs. Eliminating all pollution is impossible. Clean water and clean air, there is an opportunity cost, lower standard of living. Clean environment is a normal good. Positive income elasticity. Rich countries can afford a cleaner environment. There's more rigorous environmental protection. Clean air and clean water. The law of demand is at work here. The lower the price of environmental protection, the more the public will want it. Types of private solutions. Moral codes and social sanctions on charities and self-interest of the relevant parties. Integrating different types of businesses. Interested parties can enter into a contract. The cost theorem. If private parties can bargain without cost over the allocation of resources, they can solve the problem of externalities on their own. Whatever the initial distribution of rights, interested parties can reach a bargain. Everyone is better off. Outcome is efficient. Dick has the legal right to keep a barking dog named Spot. So Dick gets about $500 worth of benefits from the dog. Jane bears $800 worth of cost from the barking dog. So what's the efficient outcome? Jane can offer Dick $600 to get rid of the dog. Dick will gladly accept. Bye-bye, Spot. Both are better off. Dick has a legal right to keep a barking dog. What about Dick gets $1,000 benefit from the dog? Jane bears an $800 cost from the barking dog. What's the efficient outcome? Dick turns down any offer below 1,000. Jane will not offer any amount above 800, and therefore Dick keeps the dog. Number three, Jane can legally compel Dick to get rid of the dog. So Dick gets 800 benefit from the dog. Jane bears a $500 cost from the barking. Efficient outcome, Dick keeps the dog. Private outcome, Dick pays Jane $600 to put up with the Spot's barking. Private market achieves the efficient outcome regardless of the initial distribution of rights. Active Learning 3. Collectively, the 1,000 residents of Green Valley value swimming in Blue Lake at 100,000. A nearby factory pollutes the lake water and would have to pay 50,000 for non-polluting equipment. Number A, describe a course-like private solution. Number B, can you think of any reasons why this solution might not work in the real world? Why private solutions do not always work. Number one, high costs, high transaction costs. Costs that parties incur in the process of agreeing to and following through on a bargain. Stubbornness, bargaining simply breaks down. Coordination problems, large number of interested parties, coordinating everyone is costly. This doesn't work with large numbers. Summary. When a transaction between a buyer and a seller directly affects a third party, the effect is called an externality. If an activity yields negative externality, such as pollution, the socially optimum quantity in a market is less than the equilibrium quantity. If an activity yields some positive externalities, such as technology spillovers, the socially optimal quantity is greater than the equilibrium quantity. Governments pursue various policies to remedy the inefficiencies caused by externalities, regulating the behavior, internalizing an externality using corrective taxes, issue permits, similar results to imposing corrective taxes on polluters. According to the cause theorem, if people can bargain without cost, then they can always reach an agreement in which resources are allocated efficiently. In many cases, however, reaching a bargain among the many interested parties is difficult, so the cause theorem does not apply.